The mission of how I started podcasting and started Special Chronicles is giving respect and voice to those of us with special needs. I became an athlete leader of Special Olympics Illinois, and when I recorded the audio of the speeches that I was given and putting those up as podcasts, I soon received messages of encouragement, and I learned that it was a powerful platform and really helping to make a difference in people's lives. 12 years ago, I didn't expect that anybody would want to even listen to me. We have over 42,316 listeners per month. It's a humbling experience. I'm really grateful to make a difference in other people's lives. Coming up this week on the Special Chronicles Show, episode 445, Kathleen and Maui Shriver, chairwoman of the Special Olympics Founders Council, join us on the podcast, a conversation about the legacy of inclusion of the grandmother of Special Olympics founder Eunice Kennedy Shriver as we celebrated on July 10th her 100th birthday. Coming up this week on SpecialChronicles.com.
This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
Podcasting since 2008. This is a show where we're broadcasting disability stories from an insider's perspective, and we are giving a voice to people with special needs. This is your weekly guide to find and joy, acceptance, and inclusion.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we tried, it's time we cared, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome back to the Special Chronicles Show. It's Daniel, founder of Special Chronicles and a Southern Shriver International Global Messenger, Special Olympics. So excited to be back and excited to welcome two guests this week, not just one, but two. But before we bring on our guests, like just quick few housekeeping things. The Special Chronicles Show is presented by the ComEd Energy First program. Learn more about our partner ComEd at specialchronicles.com/ComEd, and you can join our supporters and support this podcast. specialchronicles.com/give, and specialchronicles.com is where to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Subscribe to our podcast. All the links will be in the description below wherever you're listening to this podcast. And without further ado, put your virtual hands together as we welcome our guests, Maui and Kathleen Shriver. Welcome. They started applauding quietly and then they kind of raised the volume. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while since. I think this is for both of you. It's been a long time coming to have you both on this podcast. Long-time listeners will remember, Kathleen, we had your dad Tim on a couple of times, I think, and your brother Tim and your sister Caroline, and then I think your brother Sam was on when we were in Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We did I did a live daily podcast out there at those games, and then Maui had your dad on a Abu Dhabi Daily Show episode when we were at the Young Athletes event, and then I had both of your uncles Anthony on at the Best Buddies conference.
Fantastic. So you've got them all.
Yeah.
Almost all.
Almost all. Yeah. So I'm sure the rest of your family will hopefully don't get too jealous that they're not on yet. Well,
we're so happy to be here. Thank you again.
And I think one of the reasons why we decided to have you on is your grandmother had what would have been her 100th birthday, July 10th. And so, and there was article, I think, in People magazine that you guys were interviewed in. So let's first have you both, for any new listeners who might not know both of you, I'm sure a lot of them know your grandmother and maybe some of your uncles, but tell us how you're connected to our disability community and your role within our Special Olympics movement.
Sounds good. Kathleen, do you want to go first?
Sure. So Molly and I grew up with the movement as almost family to us. It was almost another family member was the Special Olympics movement. As you know, our grandmother started it 51 years ago now. And we grew up playing sports and doing camps. And we call them unified sports. And camps with athletes with and without disabilities, and sitting at the dinner table with people with and without disabilities, and attending World Games, and just being incredibly inspired our whole lives by people with and without disabilities working together. So that was our introduction was probably our birth to the movement. It was almost like I said, a family member to us. And today, Molly and I are both on the Founders Council. Molly's the chair and I'm the vice chair, and we get to work together to continue getting involved in the movement in new ways and to continue my grandma's legacy in new ways.
Awesome.
Yeah. So as Kathleen said, we both grew up in Bethesda, Maryland, just 10 minutes from our grandmother's house. Special Olympics has always been a part of our lives. We both were coaches or assistant coaches for our local unified basketball teams. We spent the summers going to Camp Shriver in our grandmother's backyard in Potomac. And now we've continued our family tradition of Special Olympics through the Special Olympics Founders Council, which Kathleen mentioned. So the Founders Council is essentially a body of the administrative structure of Special Olympics International, in which we support different initiatives that Special Olympics International puts forward. Our role is to represent the family within this Special Olympics movement, participate locally and on an international level in various different games or community activations. And the third part of our role as members is to be educated on what the organization is working on, whether it's within the policy and advocacy aspect of Special Olympics International, or healthy athletes, or sports, or young athletes. So the Special Olympics Founders Council consists right now of about, I want to say, 6 of our cousins. I am honored to serve as the chair with Kathleen as my vice chair. We also have Timbo Shriver, who you mentioned has been on your show, my brother Tommy Shriver, our cousin Christina Schwarzenegger, and our other cousin Natasha. And so we all have different interests. I love to use this example that Natasha and Christina are very creative. So right now they're working on a special project with our marketing department, where they're able to use their creative talents to support the marketing department. Timbo is at law school at UVA. So in the past spring, he helped with our Capitol Hill Day. So it's a really great space for our cousins to come together and work to support the Special Olympics movement, continue our grandma's legacy onto the next generation, and use our special gifts and talents to contribute to that. And we are really happy to be launching this new Founders Council legacy movement, and we're so grateful for opportunities to speak about it with you.
Yeah, awesome. I want to touch on something I think you both have touched on, the unified basketball. Our mutual friends, Darian Packwood and one of her daughters, Joelle, I think you guys both have played with. I had an opportunity to come out to one of the unified basketball. I think it was at your church at I think it was, I want to say 2016, was it maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe share, and we don't have a lot of time today, but share briefly your connection and your time playing with our mutual friend, Joelle Packwood.
Yeah. I actually met Joelle when I was probably about 6 or 7 through Kathleen, because she was always going to the Blessed Sacrament Unified Basketball games. And we've developed such a strong friendship. I talk to her on the phone at least every other week. I was her confirmation sponsor when she was confirmed in the Catholic Church. And she's such a special human being. She lights up every room she walks into. She has a million friends. And I am so grateful for our friendship. I'll let Kathleen talk a little bit more about the Blessed Sacrament things, but I want to give a shout out to Joelle if she ever gets to watch this. We love you, Joelle.
We love you, Koji. Yeah, Joelle, and I know you've been friends with them for a while now, Dan. And I know Darian, and Darian was on your show, right?
Yeah, a few times, and she's actually on the board of Special Chronicles. So
amazing. Joelle has been, as Molly said, a friend of ours forever, as long as I can remember. And she did start on the basketball team, but one of the really cool initiatives that she and her mom started, or not initiatives, teams, was a cheerleading team called Joy. And they basically created a whole new arm of our basketball team, and because they would cheer before and after our games, and they started going to competition separately. And Darian and Joelle have been huge advocates for creating Special Olympics cheer as an international organization. They've traveled with it, and it's a really cool new arm. I've even seen recently Special Olympics has created a new sport, dance sport, that Caroline was involved in Abu Dhabi. And it's just really cool to see these new arts become, or different types of sport join the movement. And Darian and Joelle were big founding forces in that.
Yeah, awesome. Let's switch back briefly. I'm going to kind of combine a few things into one for the sake of time. But tell us about both of your early memories with your grandmother, Eunice, and a little bit about her legacy. And if you both have a favorite story, I'm sure you guys have a lot of favorite stories, but a favorite story from your early days of Special Olympics with your grandmother, whether it's at Camp Tribal or at a World Games.
Sure. So as we mentioned, we lived, I live 5 minutes from my grandma. I went to her house almost every day after school and every Saturday and Sunday to play with my cousins, Kathleen's family, and oftentimes our cousins from out of state would come in and visit. And so my grandma was my best friend growing up till I was 10, and when she unfortunately passed away. But I just remember her as such a powerful force. Always so much fun at her house. She had an unusually strong devotion to the Mother Mary, which was really impressive to watch and grow and learn from. And everyone always jokes about her competitive nature and her stern ability to create momentum. And I think that that's something that I was able to witness at a very young age through family competitions. And so every time we would get together on the weekends, we'd bring all of our friends to her house and we'd play capture the flag or run around the house and do relay races. And one time my brother Tommy had his friend Bo Hanley over, and they were about, I want to say 5 or 6 years old, like really young little kids, but a lot of energy. And my grandma had just gotten back from the hospital after breaking a couple of ribs, maybe a hip, maybe an arm. She wasn't in state to be competing against an energetic 5-year-old boy. And so she had organized a relay race in the house. And I think that, Bo made some comment like, oh, I could beat you or whatever. And she was like, okay, game on. And we watched my grandma stumble around the first floor of the house, very frail. Like my dad was very nervous, and she ended up beating Bo. And it was the most hilarious and one of the most memorable stories that our family tells about her competitive and fun-loving nature to take on people of all different, abilities, whether it's a 5-year-old boy or my dad or whatever. And so I miss her every day. I have a picture of her here in my room that I don't know if you can see. Yeah. It's always, I miss her. I love her. And I'm so happy that I get to continue to honor her even, when she would be turning 100.
Awesome. And Kathleen, you want to share some of your favorite memories?
Sure. Some of my favorite memories are definitely competitive ones as well. My grandma was always inviting athletes of Special Olympics or people on her Special Olympics team over. So as Molly said, on Saturdays and Sundays, we'd end up in the swimming pool with people with and without disabilities. And grandma would teach us breaststroke and freestyle and create competitions for us in the pool, and invite our friends to make new friends with Special Olympics athletes. And our Aunt Rosemary was at my grandma's often, so we'd have dinner with her, and grandma and her would tell stories, which was always so fun to see because of their incredible friendship and their sisterhood, that I'm really excited to continue and to look at when I work with my cousins and siblings, and all this work is just a model for teamwork, for friendship, for love. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to continue after a brief 30-second break and talk about the Special Olympics Founders Council that you both have touched on briefly at the beginning of the episode, and about your grandmother's legacy, kind of tie that all together, because I think you can make a good connection with her legacy and then what you guys are doing with the Founders Council. So all of that, our guests are Molly and Kathleen Shriver, chairwoman of the Special Olympics Founders Council. Our conversation continues after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com.
International Podcast Day is September 30th, and you can help spread the word. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved? It's pretty simple. Head over to internationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. Then use hashtag International Podcast Day to join the conversation. You can reach out and connect with other podcasters, listeners, and your favorite podcast hosts. Remember September 30th, International Podcast Day, a day-long celebration of the power of podcasts.
We're going to take a quick break from our conversation today to learn how you can become a Special Chronicles supporter so we can continue to produce this podcast. Support for Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. As an independent public media podcast, Special Chronicles will always be there for you. Now we're asking you to be there for us. As a nonprofit independent media organization, we can only make programs like Special Chronicles with listener support. Our programs provide weekly, candid, honest, and inspiring conversations about the people with disabilities community that creates awareness, support, and advocacy within each week's episode. Listeners tell us our shows are an enjoyable and necessary podcast for the intellectual and developmental disability community and everyone else who is able to listen to stories about life from a different angle. Please, if you and your family love our weekly podcast, make a one-time, monthly, or annual gift of thanks today. Support this podcast at specialchronicles.com/give. That's specialchronicles.com/give. And now, back to the show to continue the conversation today. And back to the show. And we're back. Our guests are Molly and Kathleen Shriver, Chairwoman of the Special Olympics Founders Council. Now, if our listeners want to know exactly what is the Special Olympics Founders Council, they we're just for the sake of time, we're going to say they can rewind the podcast. That's the great thing about on-demand podcasts is you can just rewind and go back to the beginning. So with that, talk a little bit about what you both see as your grandmother's legacy of inclusion and how you both, through the Special Olympics Founders Council, are continuing her legacy of inclusion. I wrote a blog back in July. I don't know if you guys read it, but about how I continue through podcasting your grandmother's legacy. So that's big, and as a SSIGM as well. But how are you both, and your cousins through the Special Olympics Founders Council, how are you guys continuing your grandmother's legacy of inclusion?
Yeah, well, I think your blog post says it all, honestly. I think we're learning from people like you, Dan, and other athletes how to continue her legacy, because the first thing my grandmother would say is listen to the athletes and play with the athletes. And so one of the aspects of the Founders Council that I've been really excited about, one of the pieces of work I've been really excited about is media and social media and enhancing stories and voices like yours and getting those out there. So especially during COVID, we had lots of opportunities where there's webinars. Molly's led a few of them. We have all these different like plank challenges and jump rope challenges and things like that on social media. And I think one of the things that my grandmother would be so excited about if she lived if she were alive right now is that voices like yours are leading the show. And so that's one of the things we've been working on. We've also been teaming up with, as Molly said, different arts projects with different initiatives for the World Games that are coming up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Molly, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I think that's like you hit it straight on the head, Kathleen. Listening from all of the leaders who are already a part of the movement or who are, emerging to be a leader within the movement. I think that our generation is very passionate about inclusion and receptive to inclusivity in different ways that we haven't seen in the past, like podcasts or video shows or, arts programs. And these previously untraditional means of inclusion are really spearheading this inclusion revolution. And I think that it's really great, as Kathleen said, for us to have the opportunity to learn from individuals like you. I'd also like to add that one of the things that we have been trying to work on is getting people involved in their local chapters. And if you don't have a chapter in your community, go ahead and start it. Like, there's nothing that my grandma would have loved more than to see young people going out into their communities and starting a unified team or starting a program in their school. And you can learn how to do that on specialolympics.org. That wasn't planned, but thanks for putting that up there. And I don't mean that in a promotional way. I think that that's what she would want. And, Kathleen and I are really lucky. We grew up in a community that has a very strong network in terms of the special needs community. There was, tons of Special Olympics teams. There was Best Buddies chapters in almost every school. There was a lot of activity going around in that space. But for a lot of young people in America and across the world, that's not the case. And I think education is really key. Whether you smile at someone or stare at someone, or whether you wave and say hello or look the other way, like little everyday things that we can teach each other. And then hopefully, grow the movement, whether it's by starting a chapter or just simply saying hello to someone who you wouldn't normally talk to. I think it's really the way that my grandmother would love to see this movement grow today. And she was a pusher. And so I know that she thinks smiling is nice, but smile 1 hour and the next hour go start a chapter. So
Awesome.
I encourage everyone to get involved on a local level. And the best part about Special Olympics I've witnessed is how great the scale is and how you can feel like a part of it in your own home, in your own hometown. And then you can go to the World Games and you can see that it's a worldwide movement, and everyone, whether you're witnessing two athletes from Israel and Pakistan hug, or you're hugging your next door neighbor. It's such an incredible worldwide movement that we all get to be a part of with open arms.
Yeah, awesome. I want to touch on two brief things before we move on to the last couple of brief segments. But one thing is about the unified generation. When I had Kathleen, your dad, and Molly, your Uncle Tim, on, it was actually in the hallway of a hotel in downtown Chicago. Of all the places we could have recorded, the hallway was the best place that we could find. I don't know why, but one thing he said was he mentioned the same thing of what you just said about starting a local chapter, and then he made a big thing about how the unified generation that will a part of it is the future for the inclusion revolution. Another brief thing I want to comment on is and in Tim's second time as a guest, which doesn't happen that many with guests, but his second time this past spring, we had him on to talk about the Call to Unite book and the 24-hour live stream event that you guys did a year ago. So I don't know how much you're pointing at Kathleen.
Kathleen, I hope that's it.
Everybody can't talk that much about it. I don't know how much you involved with it, Molly, but Kathleen, do you want to, I think your dad said that you were part of a lot of it behind the scenes, that you guys had stayed up for the entire, I think your dad said he stayed up maybe for 25 hours of the 24. So
my dad
comment on that.
Also was so excited about it after that. He stayed up for about, I think, like 5 hours after it, and actually had drinks and dinner with Molly's parents. I went straight to bed after the 24 hours. My Aunt Jeannie and Uncle Mark came over, and my parents ate with them. And I think my dad stayed up for several more hours because he was just so excited. And he was so excited because he got to talk to people from all over the world, from all different backgrounds. And my dad's work with Unite is definitely inspired by his, maybe I'm going to get this wrong, but over 25 years as the CEO of Special Olympics. So with his work with the athletes, and obviously his entire life with the movement. But we had the Special Olympics Florida. We should link to this at some point. But did an incredible performance. Loretta Claiborne, an idol of both Molly and I, who was the best friend of my grandma, gave an incredible talk during the program. What other we had Special Olympics Florida, we had Loretta, and I think we had a few athletes from the Middle East come on as well. But as you can tell, we had people from all over the world in all different backgrounds. We had priests, we had poets, we had celebrities, we had you name it, coming together to talk about how they've found unity in spite of all the pain that COVID was causing. Found connection with others and relating their different experiences of how they've coped with the pandemic, and how it could actually bring us together in spite of all the pain it's caused us.
Awesome.
But the athletes of Special Olympics were had incredible talks and performances. So
so if you find the link, you have to text me the link and I can put it in the show notes. And we had Luetta on this podcast, I think last year. But if people want to listen to that conversation with your dad, it's all one word. So it's specialchronicles.com/the call to unite podcast is where they can listen or watch that episode. Let's move on briefly and share with us how our listeners can get involved in the work that you guys are doing with the Special Olympics Founders Council. You said there's a number of things that you guys are involved in, but how can our listeners get involved?
I think the best way to get involved is just to go on to specialolympics.org and get involved in your local chapter. We're also running, different campaigns throughout the year. So right now for my grandma's centennial year, there will be a couple of fun activations that you can find out again on specialolympics.org. As we mentioned, we've just been founded. The Founders Council has been founded within the past, I would just say, year and a half in the pandemic. So we're still working out. Maybe we'll have some social channels launching soon, but that is the best way to be updated on what we're doing. So yeah, please, we would love your support, and we'd love to support whatever you're doing as well, Dan, with this podcast. It's super awesome. We are really here to help the organization and be of support to the different chapters. So if you're watching this and you're a part of a Special Olympics program and you have some ideas for the Founders Council, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and it's new. What I started podcasting 13 years ago, and what started as one podcast, it's now slowly expanded it into a whole podcast network. So I've got a few other podcasts, and some more to hopefully be launching soon. But it's amazing that we're able to kind of use this platform, use this network, and really share our stories. My mom had left I have a new way on specialchronicles.com/feedback. If anybody wants to write a review, you can go on there and you can write a review. Of course, Apple Podcasts as well. But this review, I'll read it briefly for you guys. And my mom had wrote, "Whenever we get engaged in another human story, we are much likelier to develop understanding and compassion. I love that the podcast bring us up close to the stories of people's lives." And I think that kind of sums up. We're going to go ahead and take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into some final thoughts and brief world games memories very briefly after the break right here. Our guests are Molly and Kathleen Shriver, Chairwomen of the Special Olympics Founders Council. Our conversation continues after the break on specialchronicles.com. And hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break from our conversation today to hear a message from our partner. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program. The Energy Force is the country's first energy efficiency education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. ComEd is powering lives and really is powering us here at Special Chronicles to keep the lights on and our technology is powered on. As ComEd powers the lives of us, they are literally giving a voice to people with with special needs. We thank ComEd for the generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. Learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. That's specialchronicles.com/ComEd. And now we return to our conversation. This episode continues right now. And he's right now. I kind of cut that off. But our conversation with Molly and Kathleen Shriver, Chairwomen of the Special Olympics Funders Council. I have had opportunity to be did a live. Well, it was, as my mom likes to say, it's not live, it's recoded live, a recoded live daily podcast at the World Games in Los Angeles, I was actually born in Long Beach, California. So that was fun to kind of be back there for those. And then as a Southern Tribal International Global Messenger, or SSIGM, as we say, at the 2019 Abu Dhabi Games, and then we'll be at the Kazan, Russia for those. And then because of COVID, our term got extended by a year. So we'll be at the 2023 Berlin Games. And my mom is actually, if you've never been to a World Games before, but she knows German. So she's actually going to be coming to those. So tell us kind of briefly about your World Games experiences and what you're looking forward to in 2022 and in 2023 as well.
Yeah, the World Games growing up was just such an incredible experience of absolute kind of this revolutionary new world being created in a stadium. You'd see athletes from all over the world. You'd hear them speak. You'd see performances. You'd see them standing with presidents, with politicians, with celebrities, all coming together. Hearing especially my grandma speak at the World Games growing up was always just so moving and so powerful. And it was a little distracting sometimes because it would make you think of the movement as something kind of huge and absolutely for celebrities and for the big shots. But then you saw the athletes and you'd hear from them and you'd realize what this movement was really made up of, and how when they came together in one place, it would bring the celebrities because of them. And it would bring the politicians, and everyone was just so moved. And every year I'd be brought to tears because of how inspired I was just by what the athletes could create.
Awesome. And
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you can go ahead and share your...
Yeah, I love how you describe that, Kathleen, like a new world being built in a stadium. I think like opening ceremonies are my favorite day of every 4 years. It's just so powerful to be surrounded by such an overwhelming energy of love and excitement and inclusion and acceptance and respect. And it's really a time to celebrate all of the athletes who've overcome so many obstacles in their lives. And I think as you were mentioning, you know, the politicians, the celebrities, the entertainers, all of the big shots in the room are in awe of this overwhelming sense of community that has been created in such a short time by people who haven't even met each other before, but by their by their energy. And so and that continues throughout the week of the games, and there's loss and there's victory, and it's so unique to see the world come together to celebrate human greatness. And so I think it's really something, if you haven't been involved in, you can volunteer, you can watch online. I think ESPN typically streams the games. Shout out to ESPN, who's been such a fantastic partner of Special Olympics. And I think that if you have the chance to get involved, you'd be silly not to.
Yeah, and I think to kind of wrap up this before we move into the last segment with some final thoughts, I love what you both have said about how it's a new road being built in a stadium, and I think that and about all the politicians and everybody coming together with us athletes. There's a quote that my mom has said, and that's, if the whole world were like Special Olympics, then there would be no rules. And I think that's a powerful statement when people come join this movement, when they come join us at Special Olympics, then it really breaks down those barriers. And yeah.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add really quickly that our Uncle Timmy has done such an amazing job leading the organization. And it is primarily a sports organization with games and competitions, as my grandma always envisioned it to be. But Timmy has taken it to the next level in ensuring that our athletes are leaders and are also receiving the quality healthcare and education that they deserve to be high-performing athletes. If you go to the games, you can go to the Healthy Athletes tent, where there's an incredible setup of doctors to be taking care of our athletes, and education as well, and leadership. There's so many opportunities for athletes and unified partners to take on leadership roles, and I think that really shows the 360 mission of Special Olympics to create a unified world. And I want to applaud our Uncle Timmy for leading that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the unified leadership is really taking it to a new level as well. And there was going to mention something about and I forgot what it was, but let's go ahead and just take a one last short break, and then we'll get to some final thoughts and a question that I always end the conversations with, so I'll end it with you guys as well. That final question is coming up after our final break right here with Molly and Kathleen Shriver, our guests on the Special Chronicles Show this week when the podcast continues. Hey, friends, podcast listener friends, I'd like to take a brief moment to let you know about how awesome StreamYard is. StreamYard is the easiest way to create professional live streams. StreamYard is a live streaming studio in your browser. Interview guests, share your screen, and much more. Stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Sign up for StreamYard and get $10 in credit with our referral link at specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. That's specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. You see the link right below on the screen here, and also will be in the show notes in the description below. But all of us at Special Chronicles, we love StreamYard. I've got a coffee mug I'm drinking coffee out of. Got a t-shirt on. I've got a sweatshirt, this StreamYard Puddles plush duck, Puddles the duck here in the studio, and just really love it. Makes really love StreamYard. It makes it easy to connect with guests. Just send guests the link to join StreamYard, and easily have a professional logo and banners and graphics, and it just makes it easy to pre-record, to live stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Really love StreamYard. It's helped to make the audio podcasts and the video versions of the audio podcasts that I've been doing for the past 13 years. It's helped to make the video versions up to the next level, to a more professional level, while also making it easy to live stream. So all of us at Special Chronicles love StreamYard. Once again, if you want to sign up with StreamYard, specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. That's specialchronicles.com/StreamYard to sign up and get $10 in credit with our referral link. I hope you all will sign up for StreamYard, and happy live streaming. And until then, Sign up for StreamYard and get 10,000 credit without a phone link at specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. That's specialchronicles.com/StreamYard. And now back to the show. And we're back on guests Molly and Kathleen Shriver, chairwoman of the Special Olympics Founders Council. So let's get to some brief plugs. There's a few links we'll put in the show notes. One is to that on specialolympics.org, that a excerpt article on that SOI had put out along with the People magazine link. We'll put in the show notes along with specialolympics.org and that Special Olympics Florida performance from the Unite event. But are there any other plugs that you guys would like for the Special Olympics Founders Council, or for both of you personally on Instagram or social media?
Follow Special Olympics. Also follow the social media of your local chapter. So it could be Special Olympics if it's Special Olympics North America, or if it's Special Olympics Maryland or Special Olympics Texas. There's lots of local accounts. Yeah, Montgomery County, exactly. Yeah. That's ours. And follow Special Chronicles.
Yeah. Special Good plug there. SpecialChronicles.com for links to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all of our podcasts, newsletter, all there. And Kathleen, you're at K Shriver with 2 R's, and Molly, you're at Molly_Shriver, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, I think if you could follow Timmy, our leader, Loretta, our chief inspiration officer. Any of our global messengers are always putting out great content. I would go through the Special Olympics Instagram and see who they follow, because there's a lot of really great creative accounts out there doing different stuff in this space. If you have a specific interest in cooking or art or politics, it's out there.
Awesome. So again, people can find those links for the Special Olympics Instagram on specialolympics.org, right? So we'll make sure to include those links in the show notes on specialchronicles.com/podcast 445. So people can just look down in the description below wherever you're listening or watching this episode, and you can find the links to follow Special Olympics. Before we get to that final question, I think you guys saw the show notes, but before we get to that final question, any final thoughts on your time here today on the Special Chronicles Show that you want to share with our listeners?
Let's hear the final question.
Oh, all right. All right. I was going to say final thoughts, but okay. You can throw your final thoughts in after you answer the final question. So that final question, now we've got a little bumper before we get to that final question right here. And the final question is...
We're not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising.
Peaceful protesters.
In a rebellion against anyone
who has a fear of difference.
Difference. Our demands are
equality,
dignity,
and the recognition of our shared humanity.
We will not stop
or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
more divided than ever.
And coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution
is inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
And if you couldn't tell, as you know, the inclusion revolution is a big part of Special Olympics. And so the final question is, I always ask all the guests, ever since coming back from Abu Dhabi, that is, what does inclusion mean to you? So I don't know who wants to go first, Molly or Kathleen, but what does inclusion mean to you?
Inclusion to me means reaching out to people who are different and bringing them into your home, bringing them onto your basketball court, bringing them into your school, and learning from them yourself, and looking past divides that might scare you, and seeing them as opportunities. new friendships, and for a better world.
Awesome. And Molly?
I think inclusion is respecting and accepting different perspectives, and on a more social scale, reaching out and inviting that one person who may not completely vibe with the group, but it would mean the world to them to be included, and it's a selfless act, because you just want to, at the end of the day, make everyone happy and feel loved and respected and appreciated.
Awesome. Great answers. We always have a lot of unique answers. When I asked Molly, your dad, Mark, that at the Young Athletes event, I think I had kind of sort of answered, and so he kind of answered with kind of the same thing that I had answered. But it's always fun to get everyone's answers. It's been a joy having you both on. Hopefully, when we're in Kazan, Russia, maybe we can do whatever event we're all at. We can do not as long as this 15-minute episode, but maybe some short, brief podcast in person. And anytime that you guys want to come on, or if you know of any of your cousins or friends who want to come on this podcast, you're more than welcome to come back on.
Thanks, Pop.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks. And folks, you can stay subscribed. We got more content coming to you guys next week with returning guest leading up to the 2022 USA Games. And in October, we co-produced with United Airlines our Unified at Work series. We got 4 new exciting episodes that is taking 2 months to produce, but that's coming up with more content in the coming months. So stay subscribed to this podcast. Thanks, Molly and Kathleen, for coming on the Special Chronicles Show, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.